Hello again, YouTube, and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. I'm sat lounging in the back of mine because I've just been watching part 1 of this Northeast 250 mileage challenge. So this is part 2. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, click on the link above and go and watch that one first. There's quite a bit of shenanigans goes on as I try and be as energy efficient as possible, going from Pennan on the north coast, basically up through the mountains and past 2 ski centres, and climbing and climbing and climbing, trying not to burn all of the battery before we get there. So we're starting part 2 at the Devil's Elbow, which is in the far northern bit of Perth and Kinross. We're at a couple of thousand feet and we've burned just under half the battery to do just under half the miles. So are we going to make it back? So the short run back up to the summit, and then it's downhill all the way past Glenshee Ski Centre back into Ballater, and then at that point you're into Royal Deeside, and it's just a gentle waft along that river valley back towards Aberdeen and then beyond. So this is the last of the big hill climbs, and again it says 12%, but this is not 12%. This is steeper, surely. This just feels like it's just going up and up and up and up at quite a rate of knots. And I love these kind of summits where you can't see anything at all at the top. It's completely blind. So we will ease off a little bit just as we get to it, and then it slowly opens itself back up. And the blue sign welcoming us back to Aberdeenshire, which is always a good thing. And that's it. So we hit 279 at the top. So I expect that 279 watt hours per mile is going to drop fairly heavily as we go back downhill. Not many people at the ski centre. Again, what do you actually do? There'll be a cafe open. Beyond that, not really anything. So what I'm going to do to roll down the hill is I am going to be moderating the throttle to keep my speed down to something relatively sensible, and then just regenerating as much power back into the battery as I can. So we're on 51%, and I'd expect we're going to be on something like that 7-8 miles or whatever down the road back in Ballater. Finally going past the road to Tommin Towel that we came down earlier. There's been this traffic in front, so it's great that they're both going that way and we're going this way towards Aberdeen. And then the next thing that you get to is Balmoral Castle, which is off on the right, actually behind us, but the entrance to the estate is down here. I'm not going to go in. I had a look at that on a previous video, which again I'll put a little clicky link to, providing that my editing is up to it. But that's absolutely rammed. Those car parks always are. You can't actually see anything. You can't drive up and go, "Ooh, there's the castle, isn't it pretty?" You don't see it at all. Understandably, if you had a royal castle, you probably would want to keep it hidden away from people as well. We're on 150 miles since we left Pennan, so on paper there's 100 still to go. We're on 45% power. It should be absolutely fine. I mean, I am wafting along, but I'm wafting along because there is a whole stick of traffic in front and frankly behind, and I'm just trying to gap into the middle. This is Royal Deeside. You go through loads of little towns. There is no real opportunity to go and cut your way past a whole line of traffic. So there's a camper van and some other vehicles and then another camper van. I'm not going to get past them, so I might as well just back off and keep rolling into drive as power efficiently as I can. And I don't like driving right up behind people anyway, because you can't see as far. You don't get the views. Well, okay, I'm in trees at the moment, but you know, and you're also having to watch for the person in front slowing down, braking, all those other things. So I'm quite happy just wafting the thing along. But based on 100 miles to go plus another 8 to get me home, I'm pretty confident that we've got enough power. Again, this is now on the flat. We are off the mountains. We are now rolling. Yeah, there's a couple of little undulations up and down, but nothing dramatic. But all of the big hill climbs are done. This is now essentially rolling through a series of small towns and villages into Western Aberdeen. We then pick up the Western Peripheral route, the A90, and then we're following that essentially north to Peterhead, where we dive off and go through the town, and then back onto it to Fraserburgh, where we dive off and go through the town, and then the coast road back through Rosehearty to Pennan. After a long trundle down D-side, we are in Peterhead, which is actually into the city of Aberdeen. We're about to pick the bypass up. It is 12:48, so I have been going for 4 hours, 3/4, something like that, to do 181 miles. So it's not fast, this route at all, which I kind of expected. I thought I might be a little bit further along it by now. I thought maybe it'd take 6 hours to drive it, and I think it's going to be a comfortably 6 hours, maybe more. But we'll see how we get on. So anyway, efficiency is fabulous. I mean, we're doing 240 watt hours per mile, which is frankly a bit extraordinary, considering that includes an awful amount of big hill climbing. But of course, what goes up must come down, and I sense that's really what's happened here, isn't it? I've gone up, I've burned a load of power, and then I've regened like crazy on the way back down the hill. So we're on 33% battery now, so we've burned 2/3 of the battery, and we have done 201 miles. So we're on track to be able to do about 300 miles just using maths. I'm being offered 114 further miles of range on the 30-mile average, or 94, or yeah. So a little over 300 miles, 310 miles, something like that, which actually is going to be pretty close to the WLTP mileage that I showed you at the beginning of the video, if you remember. So that's interesting, and I think it's just a combination of the kind of driving that I've been doing and the weather, and the fact that it's reasonably warm at 16 degrees now. So we are still comfortably, therefore, on track to be able to do this without needing to worry about power. So what we're going to do is carry on down here and not worry too much about efficiency, because by the look of it, we've got loads left in the bank. It'll be interesting to see how accurate the 250 part of the Northeast 250 is. We're on 195 miles now. I might have added an additional mile earlier at Whitehills, but no more than that. So we're coming off the dual carriageway now to follow the coast road northeastwards, and well, look at the weather. Am I going to find when I get home that it's been like this all day, as had been forecast, and it's only because I was mad enough to go and do this little expedition for you good people on YouTube that I have been stuck with cloud and rain on and off all day? Because that'll be annoying. Audi dude's going rather slowly. Was he doing 50? But I mean, it's only 50. And I could overtake, but all I'm going to do is catch up on the traffic further ahead. I think I've got enough energy to be able to do it, but is really a point? So I think we'll do the other thing, which is back off. This appears to be the kind of car which ends up binned off into the field like that one. So that was a beefy looking old BMW. This is a beefy looking, not old, but not as modern Audi. And you see Fiestas and you see other things. There is something about people up here who drive enthusiastically in a way that is not entirely fitting with their driving skills. Let's put it that way. Wafting our way northwards towards Cruden Bay and then onwards to rejoining the A90 towards Peterhead. As you can see, it's a beautiful afternoon now. So we're not in a particular hurry. I've got a Kia EV6 in front who is getting a decent lick on. I'm just basically holding distance behind him. And enjoying the ride. It's a bit lumpy bumpy, this road, and obviously the Tesla is very good at transmitting all of those things through the chassis and into my bottom, but that does mean that I can drive the thing relatively hard around bends if I want to. So I mean, you know, I'm giving that a decent lick of turn in, and you can see how much I'm catching the Kia, and he, I assume, has just wafted it along and I haven't. So coming back down to rejoin the A90 for the run towards Peterhead and then Fraserburgh. We are mostly going to follow the A90 back up as far as Fraserburgh, with a couple of little bits of deviations, but that essentially is what this part of the trip is all about. It's still beautiful and sunny, 17 degrees, and I'm feeling a bit jealous for the people who've had this all day. I love this view. Absolutely love it. And yes, that is a real lighthouse. Coming down into Peterhead, it is a very busy and very large fishing port. It's also where my daughter went for sailing lessons, although I think that was basically a fishing industry charity trying to train the next generation of fishing people. So when we told her that, she seemed a little bit less keen on continuing on to do the course. But you know, you've got a few big trawlers over there and some other offshore supply vessels by the look of it. So the Northeast 250 route actually goes straight on at the next roundabout and then goes left. We're going to add probably about a mile on and just do a loop past the harbour, just because I like driving it. So that's definitely going to add a mile. So I think that's probably something like plus 2 miles onto the official 250. And we're currently on 223 miles done in total. So we're getting there. I think it is going to be longer than 250, and not just by my couple of miles added on though. It's the same with the North Coast 500 though. They're not 100% accurate. It's not an absolutely measured, 500 miles or 250 miles. It's just trying to give you an idea as to what it is. But obviously in our case, we're doing this as a mileage challenge. So we're on 23% of the battery, and on paper we only have to do another 27 miles, which obviously would be an absolute doddle. I think it'll be a little bit more than that, but that's okay. We've still got plenty of juice. Merchant Street. That's kind of appropriate considering that it's sat across from all of these trawlers, and there's a huge fish trading hall over there as well, and then a lifting bridge, which every time I've got to it has always been lifted, so I've never even been able to walk across it, never mind drive across it. But I think the fact that it's here is cool. Dropping down into Fraserburgh, there's actually quite a bit of traffic. There's a good number of vehicles both in front and behind. We've been doing about 50 miles an hour, something like that. So we've been getting there. Anyway, this is the most northerly town in this part of Scotland. Obviously, from Inverness it goes a lot further north, but in the northeast, Fraserburgh is as far north as we get. And the official North Coast 500 route does loop us up past the harbour, which is what I'm going to do here by turning right. Fraserburgh is a town that's got one of those reputations. When I've told a few people who are Scottish where I moved to, they've gone, why? And it's like, I think Fraserburgh's got one of these kind of like, you know, hard fishing port kind of images, but it's certainly a fishing port. But I actually like the place. There's something interesting about it. I mean, I'm not saying that it's thriving or even necessarily pretty, but there's definitely something about the place that makes me think, you know, it's a nice place to visit. There is a huge sandy beach that you can see on the map that actually goes on for miles and miles and miles around the bay. Assuming the map ever updates, there you go. So, you know, there's a massive sandy beach over there. You know, go back 2 years when I first moved up, and we've still got lockdowns and COVIDs. I'm parking up here by the beach and, you know, looking at the seagulls and all the rest of it, and then going getting a COVID jab. There's worse places to be than this. Awful lot of small fishing boats in this part of the harbour. The massive trawlers going to the other bit further up. I do like driving along with seagulls screeching out there and coming in through the window. It's good. 242 miles run now. So it'll certainly be more than 250, but I suppose really I should be allowing for 252 for the route that I've taken. But I think it's more than 10 miles still to run. So a little over 250, but that's okay. Okay, we are now west of Fraserburgh on the final leg of this northeast 250. We're on 244 miles run. We're having done 240 watt hours per mile. So we've got absolutely bags of range left, basically. It's still projecting 60 more miles, which, having done 251 since I plugged in, would give us 311. That's about in line with NEDC, to be honest. So it's been a pretty efficient run, which, considering the amount of hill climbing and the weather in places, I don't think is too bad at all. see up here at all. It just climbs and then it twists. Hang on, I've got two guys who've understandably just pushed their bikes up that. I don't blame them at all. I can see the sea again. We have come quite a little bit actually inland because the ruggedy coastline's over there, but we're about to swing our way back over in that direction, and then of course the nosedive down into Pennan to wrap this up. We've done 253 miles since Pennan, so I think it's going to actually be a pretty accurate 250, because by the time we add on maybe 3 miles, so I think maybe this is 250 now, but we're almost back. So add on 3 miles, maybe 4 for the little bits of going outside of the route that I've done, and I think it is about 250. But from an energy perspective, I'm still on 13%. Look at this. And then round the twist, and down and round the other twist. On camera, this road probably looks narrower than it actually is. You can get traffic past, providing that everybody understands how wide their cars are, without any issues. And here we are at the top of the Pennan crossroads. It is 254 miles. I reckon it'll be on 255 by the time we get to the bottom. So yeah, North Coast 250 actually is 250 miles, give or take the slightest little touch. So they've actually planned this rather well. And then if you haven't seen my other videos on Pennan and going down roads like this completely feet off, go and watch those. I'll stick a link on the screen for you. But watch that after you've watched this. So it's actually 6.5 hours since we were here. I really thought I could do it quicker than that. I know I have had a couple of brief stops to take a couple of pictures and to use a toilet and grab something to eat, but that was literally grab and go. So call it, I don't know, 6 hours, 10 minutes actually driving, which I thought it might be more like 5 and a bit. Look at this though. And then we'll do as we did this morning. We will swing back round and park it up next to the charge point, because yes, there is a charge point even here. So let's just have a quick look at the trips card. So since last charge, that's since I set off from home this morning, 262 miles and 255 on Northeast 250, averaging 238 watt hours per mile, which is actually really good. You can tell that the weather has improved, and obviously it's 16 degrees, which is going to make a difference, but that is pretty good. And it does mean that I'm arriving back on 14%, which is actually more than I thought that I was going to do. If we look at the 30 mile average, it's still saying that I've got another 49 miles to run, so 262 plus another 49. That's a decent total range, considering that, you know, we've done quite a bit of climbing today. Well, here we are back at sea level, and all is good. And there we have it for today's little mileage experiment, shall we say. Aberdeenshire's Northeast 250, which is a fun drive, quite a lot of variety, a huge amount of scenery to look at, and I can't think of a better car to do it in than a Tesla. So don't forget to let me know in the comments what you think, what kind of trips that you've done, how far you've pushed your cars, whether you thought that doing this kind of run in an electric vehicle was silly. It wasn't, but you might have thought that. Let me know, like and subscribe, hit the bell icon, you know, all of the usual stuff, and I'll see you back here very soon on Just Get a Tesla.